everyone, it's Melissa. It is so good to be back. I was gone all last week. Not gone, but I was so busy all last week. I was babysitting. And then over the weekend, I had a lot of work to catch up on. So today's Tuesday, and so I thought I would do a video. This video, I was keeping grandkids, which sort of morphs into what I wanted to talk about. And this is something that someone asked me to do, a video. She just sent me the sweetest message on Instagram. And she said that her child was graduating and she was having a hard time with it when I talk about what it was like to go through the empty nest syndrome. So I told her I would, and so this is the video. Now, a lot of you, most people my age, have gone through this a long time ago, you know, like 20 years or so ago. But just in case there are people watching that are getting ready to go through it, or maybe people my age, their own children are getting ready to go through it. And so you can kind of remember what you went through and sort of maybe encourage them that it does get better. So I thought I would talk about that. To have this video make sense, I need to go back to my childhood just a little bit, and I'll try not to make it too long. But as a child, this is kind of important to the way I felt about my own children leaving. As a child, I had strange parents. I talk about my parents, especially my mother's family, on Instagram stories a whole lot. I tell stories about them all the time because they were the funniest people, real outgoing, great sense of humor. My mother was like that. She was real funny and real outgoing, but she was hard to have as a mother. I think that we would have been greater friends, or really good friends, if we hadn't been mother and daughter. She had the urge, and she did, just really criticized me a whole lot. She criticized my hair, my skin, my feet, the way I walked, the way I stood, the way I talked, everything about me. She criticized. She wanted to fine-tune me into something that she wanted me to be. So I never really felt, I'm sure she did love me, but through her own fractured childhood and her own problems, it was hard for her to be a loving mother to me, I think. I think she did her best. And I always had physical needs. I mean, I had cute clothes and food and, you know, piano lessons, you know, just different things like that. But these other things I didn't really feel like I had. I had never really felt loved. And then my father, when I left home, which was early because I didn't think I could stand to live with him anymore, he left, and then he refused to have anything to do with me anymore, no matter how much I begged. It was so bad that my brother and I could not go to like the family reunions, because if we were going to be there, my father refused to come. Doug found him one time, and he said, "Tell Melissa not to ever try to find me again, because I'll just have to move, because I never want to have anything to do with her." So that's how much my father loved me. So I grew up feeling like I didn't have anybody love me. So I got married young, and when I was 20, I got pregnant. And I had just turned 21 when my daughter was born. And I looked at this little human being, and I thought, this is the first time that any human has ever loved me. And I'm sure my grandparents loved me. I'm sure relatives loved me. But it was the first time I'd ever really felt that somebody really loved me. She looked at me. She needed me. She needed me for everything, and you know, she would stop nursing and just stare at me, and I just couldn't believe that somebody loved me so much. So 4 years later, I had my second child, her brother, and the same thing again. These two people just loved me so much. They were everything to me. So I, ended up getting divorced, remarried Doug, and Doug and I and my children's father and his wife, the four of us, we raised the kids together. We got along real well, so that was nice. And so then it got time for my daughter to graduate from high school. So she decided she was going to go to school to the University of Memphis. Now I live in East Tennessee, which is right over here. And Tennessee's a long state. I live in East Tennessee. She was going to school in Memphis, which was way over here. So it was like a good 7 hours away from me. So we took her over to school and put her up in the dorm and everything, and I cried all the way home from Tennessee. I mean, I cried so much that all the blood vessels had burst all around my eyes. So that was really hard, but you know, I had to hold myself together because I still had this other child at home that needed me. So I got him raised, and you know, the same thing, it was time for him to leave and go to school. Well, my daughter graduated from college and my son graduated from high school. So my daughter got a job in California. Well, she was she worked for a theater company that toured all over the West, and she lived right outside of San Francisco. And so my son went to school in Charleston, South Carolina. So before my daughter left for California, she went with me to take my son to Charleston and drop him off. So of course I cried all the way back. I remember my son said, "Please take care of her. You know, she's not going to be okay." You know, because I was already just bawling. And so she said, "Okay, I will." And so, you know, I cried all the way back home. And then it got time to take my daughter to California and got her set up in an apartment and settled in her new job, car bought, you know, everything like that. So got back home, and I remember we didn't live in this house. We lived in another house. I remember sitting there and thinking, what do I do now? What in the hell do I do now? Every part of my being, not rightly, but every part of my being and every part of what defined myself as a woman had been in these children. Not saying that's right, I'm just saying that's how I was wired, probably from the way I was raised as a child. I had experienced these two people loving me so much, and they were leaving me. So I didn't know what to do with myself. I mean, you're always a mother, you know, you're always a mother, but your job is to make strong, independent people that are good citizens of your country. You know, that's your job, that are happy. And they are supposed to leave to do that. So, you know, I just sit there, and I remember I had a talk with myself, and I remember thinking, okay, you can either give up, or Doug, you can think about not only your children, they want you to be happy, but you got to think about Doug too. You know, he sacrificed a lot. I was ill some of the time, so he spent a lot of money on my illness. He helped me with the children. He spent money on, you know, college and books and, you know, just all kinds of stuff. He really sacrificed his time and energy and money on these two children that he helped me raise. And I thought I did owe him a whole woman. So what I had to do, I had to sit there and figure out how I was going to make myself whole again, into a whole woman again, into a complete woman. Because I had just been so defined by these children. Everything that I had, every part of my being was defined with them and had been poured out with them. So what I did was, you know, I grieved and I mourned, and I'm really big for gnashing of teeth and wailing and throwing myself on the bed and crying, and then, okay, I've done that. What's the next thing to do? So I did all that, you know, did a lot of crying. But I thought, okay, what I need to do now is take this opportunity to find out who I am as a woman. I was very young when I had these children, and there was a lot of things that I had not been able to explore or do for me, and to find out what kind of a woman that I really was and what my interests were. So I thought about it, and the first thing I thought about was, you know, I want to learn how to knit again. I had knitted when my children were really young, but they got so busy. You know, my kids were very busy. They, like other kids are. My daughter was extremely involved in dance. My son did soccer, and then he was in a band, and they both made good grades, and we dedicated a lot of time to helping them study and helping them, you know, with their work and whatever they needed of us to do well in school. So I had gotten out of the habit of knitting. So what I decided to do was really plunge into knitting. By that time, the internet had come around. So I looked for knitting patterns, and I started looking at how to knit the things that I did. I got books, the things I didn't understand, the terms I didn't understand, I studied. I learned how to start knitting lots of sweaters. I knitted for my family. I made baby hats and some booties for a little place in town that sold children's clothing. I just really poured myself into knitting. And I got to become familiar with the designers. I even designed a sweater myself, so that was very exciting for me. And then we bought this house that we live in, and it needed a lot of work. We wanted to restore it to the way it was originally. So I poured myself into that. I learned a lot of the woodwork. The baseboards are actually faux painted by me to look like wood. They are made out of wood, but they had so much paint on them that instead of stripping it, I decided to faux paint it to look like I wood grained it. So I did that throughout the whole house. I did wainscoting in my dining room. I faux painted it to look like leather. I just really threw myself into doing that and learning how to do that craft. And I became involved with the street. In the house I was living in, I joined with some other people to help get it declared, the street to be declared a historic street, because it's supposedly one of the oldest streets in town. So that was, took my mind off things. And I got very involved with an online message group for Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. And I ended up meeting a lot of the people on there in person and really got to know them, and they were very helpful with me treating my disease, and hopefully I was helpful with, talking with them too. So I got very involved with that. And then of course, grandchildren came, and my children ended up both of them moving back to town. But I think what I want to say is, if you can find what it is inside of you that you can move on to, not to take the place of it, because you'll always be a mother and that will always be the most important thing too. But if you can find a way to explore your needs of the things that you were never able to do, and you can see it as an opportunity to grow as a woman, I think that will really help you come to terms with this change in your life. And it is just a change. Nothing has really died. It's just moved on to a new phase. And sometimes you have to dig really deep inside yourself to be able to tap into what you need to do. And that's what you have to do. You have to tap into things and mourn the littleness, the dependency on you. Like I said, that will never change, but it just is a little bit different. They will always need you, but they will just need you in different ways. And it's a journey. It's a journey of growing older and becoming more mature women, becoming the women maybe that we're always meant to be. But there are advantages too. You can walk around naked in the house, or you can do the nasty at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I know I shouldn't mention things like that, but it's true. You can express yourself as a woman, but you can also express yourself as a couple. You can usually, except for college, you usually have a little more money. You have a lot more freedom to be able to go. You don't have to be home at a certain time to make sure the kids, are fed or what they need to take them to a new activity. And you can concentrate on yourselves as a couple. And you can just have some fun. So even though it's hard and there are a lot of negatives, there are a few positives too. So those of you getting ready to go through it or in the middle of it right now, I say have some courage. Have faith that things will get better. Mourn this time, this passage of the rite of passage of becoming a little bit more mature woman and discovering who you are deep down inside your heart, that maybe you never knew who you were before. And that can be a wonderful thing to discover. So I thank the beautiful woman that asked me to do this. It really touched me because I had to dig into myself again and remember all these things, but it will get better. And, the best of luck to all of you that are going through it. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it so much, more than you all know. So I'll talk to you all in a couple of days. Bye-bye.